This episode is brought to you by Lumina Growth Lab. At Lumina, we help professional learning and development companies who are struggling with predictable lead flow, breaking out beyond their network, and a sniper approach to attracting the ideal clients. So they can have a smoother sales process, finally have scalability, and ultimately take their business to the next level. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because business has fundamentally changed since the pandemic and now the disruption of AI. But with the right strategy and support, they're able to confidently add new channels of lead generation, leading to a packed pipeline that creates sustainable revenue and year-over-year growth for cheaper than ever before because of the use of AI technologies. If that sounds like you or someone you know, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about unlocking your business's potential. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Marketing Matrix. I'm your host, Lisanne Murphy, and today I am joined by a very, very special guest. I'm so excited to have him on, Mr. Dave McComb. Dave, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Lisanne.
Guys, I am really, really excited for this conversation. I had the opportunity to meet Dave recently, and what he does is he fills a massive need in the industry, and I'm really excited for him to break it down for you and share his journey of how it's created. But before I hand over the mic, I want to take a moment to introduce this incredible guest that I have. So Dave is the CEO and co-founder of Semantic Arts, a boutique consulting firm specializing in enterprise adoption of knowledge graphs and the data-centric approach. He is the author of Software Wasteland, The Data-Centric Revolution, and the Upcoming Future of Accounting. And I'm so excited to dive into all this because I'm sure a lot of our listeners is like, okay, you gotta break that down. I don't even know what that means.
Right.
He also told me that he is a big fan of exotic travel. And this year, is it you and your wife that you're going?
Yep.
You're going
Right.
to the, I love how you said it. You said you're going to the stands.
Yep. Three of the five. Well, no, 3 of the 7, I guess. But
I love it.
Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan.
Amazing. And have you ever been there before? I love it. And what's another, like, name off some of the other exotic places that you guys have been?
Mongolia is pretty exotic. We went into the Gobi Desert, spent a week in the Gobi Desert. That was fun. I spent a lot of time in Papua New Guinea, Myanmar. That's also a little bit off the track. Uganda, Nigeria.
I
Places
love
like
it.
that. Yep.
What is it that you love about exotic travel, Dave?
Just seeing how different people live. If you stay in your own bubble, you think your own arbitrary ways of doing things are the only ways of doing things.
Has your exotic travel informed how you either run business or do business or anything like that?
Wow,
Or
that's
is
a
it
good
more
question.
about your worldview?
Yeah, probably not directly, but I think that old saw that travel broadens you is literally true, but it doesn't necessarily show up in any particular event.
Yeah. Did you grow up appreciating exotic travel, or is that something you've adopted later?
Exactly the opposite. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and people who grew up then at that time, we thought it was the center of the universe. Why would you ever go anywhere? I went to school in town. I took my first job out of school at Arthur Anderson because they were the only people locally hiring MBAs. And they immediately sent me out of town. And one thing led to another. I took a project that was supposed to be in Mauritania. And I had no idea even where Mauritania was. I thought it was in Eastern Europe. And then I looked at a map and realized it was in the Sahara Desert. And I told my boss I was leaving to do this. And he talked me into going to talk to somebody about the developing nations practice. And one thing led to another. That project fell through. And it was Anderson that sent me to a lot of these crazy places.
I love it. So it was kind of a function of your early professional work. Like you
Yep.
landed
Yep.
these,
Yep.
and then so did you go stay in the Sahara for that gig, or that's one that fell
No,
through?
that fell through. Yeah.
I love
I've
it.
never been I've been to Egypt, which is on the edge of the Sahara.
Yeah, I love it. What's one of the craziest experiences you've had on your exotic travels? Either food you've eaten or a taxi you got in that maybe you shouldn't have, or
Well, let's take this one. Back when I went to Myanmar, it was still called Burma, incredibly primitive. You could fly to Burma, but you couldn't fly between cities in Burma, even though they had airplanes. You had to go to this place called Tourist Burma. and you say, I want to fly to Pagan or Mandalay or some other town in Burma. And they would take out a manual ledger and they'd flip several pages and they'd say, well, you can go February 28th. And I say, you guys only allow 2 weeks visas. That's 6 weeks from now. How about the other town? They'd pull out another ledger, flip, flip, flip. How about a train? How about, so finally I took a train halfway to where I wanted to go and got out and found out that if you bought a jerry can of gasoline, you could hike with these crazy guys that were probably drug lords and all this. And I got to Pagan, and that, which was very cool. And then you wonder, well, how am I going to get out of here? But you go to the airport. I say, I want to fly to Mandalay, and they said, when do you want to go? Oh, you can go anytime you want because nobody made it here.
That's amazing. How old were you when you did that?
Oh, I was probably 30.
Were you scared,
Yeah,
or was that like an
a little bit,
adventure for you?
a little bit. It was
Yeah.
it was a little. There's parts of that that are a bit edgy.
I love it. Those are the best. Some of my best experiences are from travel. I'm a travel enthusiast as well.
Cool.
Although I have to say that I haven't been to as many exotic places. I've hit the, the big ones, the popular ones, but I really do enjoy travel. So I love it. Okay,
Cool.
so give me a history of the semantic arts, right? How did it where was its genesis, and like what are some of the big milestones in terms of how it's evolved over time?
So we had a .com in the as you did, that was the thing to do. But our particular .com, we were trying to figure out a different way to build enterprise systems because I'd come from this experience at Accenture. I built a bunch of enterprise systems, but I got sort of fed up with just how arbitrary design was. Two people would design the same inventory system would end up looking completely different, everything named different, structured different. There was nothing at all that would hope to bring it together. So we started studying semantics in the early 90s, spun it into this .com in the mid-90s and we built a bunch of healthcare applications. And we were in registration to go public in very late 99. We had our investment bankers and we're getting ready for the road show and all that stuff. We got dragged out because we had too many investors, as it turned out. Got dragged out till March of 2000, at which point the .com bubble burst. The investment bankers was just like cockroaches when you turn the lights on. They were gone. And we were A, deeply in debt. B, we hadn't been paid for about 6 months and couldn't get access. We had some very good technology. We had the first patent on model-driven development and a lot of architecture. All this. Couldn't touch it because it was in the smoldering remains of this .com. So we just said, well, we better go get some revenue. Let's go consult. And we know something about semantics. It kind of makes sense. Let's create this company. So that was 2000, created Semantic Arts and just been doing that ever since.
Wow. Okay, so you had a technology and you kind of pivoted to consulting on similar technology out of necessity. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yep. Yep.
And that's really fascinating. And then that is what stuck, right? Like the semantic arts, the consulting, that's what you're still doing today.
Yeah. And what changed in the early days, we were more like an architectural firm. We just did designs. We would design what we would call a semantic model or an enterprise ontology for a firm in the same way that an architect would design a building. And we thought that people would know what to do with that. It was a much more elegant representation of all the information in their enterprise. It took us years to figure out they didn't know what to do with it, and it just sat there.
Interesting.
So gradually, and partly I belong to a few of these CEO groups where you just get together with people in other industries, and they kept chiding me because we didn't have any repeat business. Once you design an enterprise ontology for a company, they don't need another one. You only need one. There's nothing more to do. So we started getting into station. So then once we started doing that, we started realizing, oh, you can have repeat projects. We convert some of their data to conform to the ontology and then more and more. And then in fact, the more you convert, the better it gets.
Interesting. So is that so essentially you were designing it, but like was it that the organizations didn't have any implementers and that was a big problem as well?
I think so, or they didn't. I don't think they got it. I don't think they realized what we had delivered or what to do with it.
Yeah, interesting. So now you're designing and implementing,
Yeah.
correct?
It's like in architecture, we're a design build firm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's cool. So, and is it kind of like your structure, like, are you hiring people that will then become internal for these companies to like manage that data infrastructure, or it's purely
No.
leveraging like your own human capital?
Yeah, we run everything as a project, usually fairly small teams, 3 or 4 of our people, and then they join with our client who learn essentially almost an apprenticeship model. In the act of doing this, they figure out how to do it.
Interesting. And is there like a certain ideal size where like where this design work is necessary? Like where is it where a business needs this data
Yeah.
design?
We've done it at a lot of different sizes. Obviously, the bigger the firm, the bigger their problems. Some of we have a few clients with like 100,000 employees. And when you have 100,000 employees, what we've discovered, just looking at companies of various different sizes, most companies have one application system for about every 10 employees. So these companies with 100,000 employees have 10,000 different application systems. Each one has its own data model, database, terms, forms, all that stuff. So the bigger you are, the bigger your problem is and the more advantage. So some of our clients are that size, but we've found you can come down for the most part down into the sort of 1,000 employee company. Obviously it helps for other people, but the smaller you get, it's harder and harder to justify the professional services. And then one of the things that the book that's coming up now called The Future of Accounting, we decided to convert ourselves to be completely data centric. And our definition of being completely data centric is all of the information in your enterprise conforms to a single simple semantic model. So yeah, you get rid of QuickBooks, you get rid of CRM, you get rid of all that crap, collapse it into a knowledge graph and just go. So we're in the middle of doing that. And, I used to work for an accounting firm. I built a lot of accounting systems. I thought I knew accounting pretty cold until I shone the semantic lens on it, and then spent a couple of years rethinking accounting from first principles. I got an accounting professor to keep me honest. We worked on this for 2 years, find the books out in a couple of weeks. But having done that, we're just in the middle of implementing it for ourselves. Where we're going to go next are people that are kind of like us. We're professional services. We're going to go after architects, building architects.
Nice. Okay, this is really interesting. So it's not like your goal is not to necessarily like funnel all of the applications in and like categorize the data. Like your goal is like get rid of all of the majority
Yeah.
of the applications altogether.
Yeah, although what you first do is just funnel the data in, leave the applications in place. People are still pounding stuff, and that's what we're doing right now. We're still using QuickBooks for the time being, but eventually, you got all the data in your knowledge graph, and you start realizing you can build functionality on top of the knowledge graph. And in fact, it's becoming more obvious now with AI. I think what just happened in the last month or two used to be when people had a business problem. They would kind of categorize it and say, "Oh, well, I have an inventory problem. I'll go get an inventory system." And then they would select one, and then you've got a gigantic project just to get the new inventory system in. And now people are starting to, and because most enterprises were kind of allergic to custom development. They thought, "Oh, that's not the business we're in. We're not very good at it." So that's why they did this. That's where they ended up with these thousands of systems. But now all of a sudden, people are saying, "Oh, I could just implement that functionality immediately with AI." But the trick is, if you don't have this conformed knowledge graph, this semantic model, this enterprise ontology, if you don't have that already in place, all your AI work is just going to be more silos. It's going to get further But we're saying, no, you could actually build some functionality right on this shared graph, and it would still be connected.
That's really interesting. Um, is this because I've heard business owners say like, man, like it sure would be nice if like there was like one source of truth, right? If there was like one
Yep.
place all the data is, but I think it's also kind of like just this like accepted like
Hmm.
business is what it is. Like you need this system for that. Like you need QuickBooks for accounting. You need this CRM for customer
Yeah.
management. Blah blah
Yep.
blah. And I love like
Right.
you're shaking your head right now. Like,
Yep.
is it
Doesn't have to be that way. Yep.
like so? Talk to me about like how how do you guys spread the word that like they don't have to just buy in to the different semantical models of each application? Like you can have something that's like one source of truth. How do you well, what's your method of preaching?
Any and everywhere. You know, obviously we write books, we go to conferences, we have white papers, we have a website, we do podcasts
Yeah,
occasionally. You know, any method is fine as far as I'm concerned, as long as it
yeah,
gets the word out.
I love it. So, and you mentioned that you focus on, like, is it with the future of accounting specifically that's focused on architecture, or are there like specific industries where your services like really shine?
I mean, currently our work is mostly bespoke. We just go into a client, we do it for them. It turns out it's mostly financial services, pharma. The pharma industry, life sciences is really into they get it, I think, a lot better than many others. Manufacturing, people who sell data for a living, data publishers. So those are probably our main categories, but those are all pretty bespoke. And what we're going to try and do with the architecture people is first build a more complete solution on ourselves and then lift that and adapt it for architects.
So, like, kind of like productize it.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so you're okay. So you have the first book, Software Wasteland,
Right.
and then the
So
second book.
that's a book about just how bad is it really?
Mm,
And it's bad.
and it's
It's really bad.
I love it. Are there many businesses like yours? Is the competition like is it pretty steep? Or is there only a few because it
No,
takes like a very special skill set?
I mean, there are a few people that, understand semantics and ontologies and things like that,
Yeah.
but there's not a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, I'm actually like really excited that we met because like I speak to a lot of business owners and they're often like, man, I just need like one source of truth. And there's people that will
Right.
create a dashboard, right, which will funnel
Yeah.
everything in for reporting. But beyond that,
Right. Right.
there's not and it sounds like you're solving a you're not just reporting, right? Like you are
Right.
like
Right. Right.
transmuting the data into like one language. You're taking in
Yep.
Spanish and German and
Yep. Yep.
Chinese essentially from all these places and saying this is the universal
Yeah.
language. So and what are the benefits to a company when you do that? Like when you implement a system? Like what is the advantage? I mean, I think it's kind of obvious,
Yep.
but I'd love to hear like
Yep.
your point of view.
Yep. I mean, the main advantage is when you stitch together data that was previously siloed to where you can just do a query to find out what you want, everything becomes faster. So right now we do this thing we call competency questions. We go in whatever, usually we start with a company and get a rough cut of their enterprise ontology. So we want to know how everything's going to fit together, but we don't want to boil the ocean. We're not doing everything at once. Then we go deep into one little area. So this we call this think big, start small. The little area where you go deep in though is already trying to combine data from two or three different places that aren't very well integrated. And by the way, including very often includes unstructured data. Right now, people have a tough time combining unstructured data with structured data because there hasn't really been a methodology that's very good. And now there is. But anyway, before we get too far on this, we put together something we call competency questions. And these are questions that people typically need to ask, but are currently kind of hard just because the data is so fractured. And we put that together and say, okay, now, and what would typically happen for these competency questions, is it would be a mini project. You would ask somebody like, well, even what's the cost of acquiring a customer? Or we did some work with an insurance company. One of the questions, sometimes the questions are simple questions, but they're hard just because of the way things happen to be. Their question was, tell us how many customers are dealing with more than one agent. That's a pretty good question to know, and yet you can't know because they have dozens and dozens of lines of business with separate customers and agents all over the place. And, just even though they had a data warehouse, they still couldn't answer that question.
Hmm.
You bring information like that together, it's all harmonized. You run a query and it just, okay, here's all the people that have more than one agent.
Wow. I love it. That's seriously so exciting. Yeah. Well, and it seems like such an obvious need,
Yeah, I know.
Like, yeah, you're telling me.
And yet it's still kind of a hard sell. It's weird.
What? Tell me about that. Why is that? Why do you think? Is it just hard to communicate the benefits, or is it like why?
It is a paradigm shift. We have been implementing applications now for 50 years, and everybody's gotten good at how to budget them, how to do them. Everybody likes the old technology. So every time something gets started, the organization immune system kicks in. And, so that our main job is actually thwarting the organizational immune system.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Which is it's a I love how you call it an immune system. I'm totally gonna take that from you. Implementing any change is
Yep.
is
Yep.
tough. I have the same thing with my clients. You ask them to do something slightly different, and they're like, "We've never done it that way." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, I'm trying
Right.
to get you different results. So like we
Right.
gotta do different
Right.
inputs."
Right. Yep.
I love it. Okay, so you've got the book coming out in a few weeks at the time of this
Yep.
recording.
Yep.
And what's your plan with the book? Like, is this driving speaking engagements for you, or um, are you hoping to just get it, like, to drive leads? Like, what are you wanting to do with it?
We just got to get it out there. And if people read it, somebody's going to want it.
Yeah, I love it. That's
It's
great.
all you need.
Are you self publishing it, or is it through a publisher?
No. Yeah, we have a publisher.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
I
Yep.
love it.
Yep.
Okay, so also at the time of this recording, it's towards the beginning of 2026. I know. I guess we're almost done with Q1, which is crazy.
Hmm.
But what are some big business initiatives for Semantic Arts? What are you guys focused on?
Let's see. One of them, which we're right in the middle of now, is we're transitioning the company to be what we call employee governed. So, there's a movement to be employee owned, but there's a problem with employee ownership. And that is, if the employees really own the company, sooner or later they'll just sell it. And, I'm old enough to be retired. I just don't like the idea of retirement. I could sell the company. I could just take all the money and go away, but the company would be gone pretty short order. And I think the company has an important role in the world, if you will. So what we ended up doing is we've put the ownership of the company in an irrevocable trust, and the employees can run it more or less to their own benefit as long as they pay a royalty to the irrevocable trust, but they can't sell it.
Mm,
So they're sort of strapped to the mast, if you will.
yeah, like it's like this is gonna change the world one way or another. Even after Dave,
Yep. Yep.
when you go abroad to exotic travel and decide to not come back,
Yep. Pretty much.
that's awesome. I love it. That's cool. So, is that structure already in place, or is that
Yep.
like you're
Yep.
finalizing that?
Yep. The structure's in place. The ownership has changed. Right now, we're in the middle of teaching. We have a governance committee now. There's 5 people on the governance committee that are going to sort of set the direction for the company. But they're mostly ontologists and developers. They don't know strategy. So
Yeah.
a lot of this year is teaching them how to think strategically, things like that. And we got a president in place now, so that I'm just the CEO now. So yeah, those are some of the changes.
Has that been a challenging transition, or like you're welcoming it? Like, what's that
No,
been like for you?
I welcome it.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard not to be in charge completely. I mean, I'm still kind of in charge, but not to be completely in charge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would imagine that it's kind of bittersweet. It's like, this
Yep.
is what you've been
Yep.
working towards, but
Yep.
it's also like it's your baby.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that. I love it. And what are some of the like the issues that you're trying to noodle on? Like when either like whether it's late at night or when you're kind of stewing in your office, like what are some of the pieces of the puzzle to have this thing really take over and change the world like you want? What are the pieces that need to fall into place?
Yeah, we need, we have a model driven environment on a knowledge graph, all that kind of stuff, but it's just not quite seamless enough, fast enough. And we've got we haven't implemented all of accounting. We have lots of use cases to implement in accounting. So a lot of that is what can we do to make that faster and smoother and to make it to where that it's not developer driven. We want it to be, an ontologist consultant can build out and modify the use cases more or less at will.
I see. So like the structure is all there, and so really it's just it's more of a strategic
Yeah.
instead of a technical
Yeah. Yeah.
implementation. Yeah. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Good. Anything else?
No, just, more of the same, find a few more clients and keep doing more of what we do.
Right? That's always the B2B play, right? Like
Yep. Yep.
gotta find more qualified clients. That's what we're all about. I love it. And you mentioned AI briefly. I would love to hear, I mean, my question generally is like what are some market trends that are impacting you right now? And if you want to dive into AI and how that's impacting your business, I'd love to do that. Or if you have a different market trend you want to dive into, but what market trends are impacting semantic arts at the moment?
The big trend for about the last 2 years, AI took most of the budget we were competing for. Everybody went all in on AI and we did what we could. We got by, but it wasn't great. All of a sudden, in the last 2 months, everybody seems to have simultaneously woken up and realized, all that what we spent on AI, most of it was wasted, most of it's throwaway, and they're realizing a couple things. One is the real problem is they didn't have their data in order. There's a guy from Microsoft, the guy who did their internal Copilot implementation over SharePoint, had a great line in a conference I went to. He said, ambiguity is Gen AI's kryptonite. And if you have dozens of customer systems, you have dozens of definitions of what a customer is, and you have so much ambiguity. In fact, I was just giving a presentation and he said, you have so much ambiguity, the AI doesn't even need to hallucinate. You've already given it all those different, So anyhow, a lot of people are coming back to that. I think that's good news. The other is, we're obviously using AI in our practice, but it's more, I think the best use case for us right now, we used to use natural language processing to conform unstructured data to our ontologies, but AI is now a lot faster and a lot better. So if you really have a really well-formed, unambiguous definition and can provide all the patterns that you want to see reflected in your knowledge graph, it does an amazing job of reaching into a document and pulling out. We call them triples in a knowledge graph. Data is organized in nodes connected by edges. So node, edge, node, that's a triple. And we were just doing something with a clinical research organization. In a clinical trial, it has a protocol that's about 100 pages long, amazingly dense, complicated, but it can now reach into that 1,500, 2,000 triples. They're almost perfect. It's amazing how good that's gotten recently.
Mm,
And then we just put it in the knowledge graph along with all the structured data, and it just knits together.
hmm. That's
It's very
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's super neat. That's super neat. Yeah, well, that's really cool that like you're leveraging it, but you're also I've noticed the same thing in my own business, Dave, where it's like, hey, there are like a few solutions like surrounding AI in terms of lead generation that I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is going to change everything. But like going back to like your if there's ambiguity, like
Hmm.
AI is just going to like magnify the garbage,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
The
Exactly.
same thing happens with marketing, right? Like if there's a
Yep.
company that like hasn't really dialed in like their message or like how they talk to customers, AI doesn't fix that, right? Like
Right.
it can throw their
Right.
message in front of more people very easily, yes, but like if that message doesn't resonate with a small group, it's not going to resonate with thousands and thousands. And so I've totally seen that
Yeah.
in my own business
Right.
and my own line of work. So
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Super interesting. I love it. Well, this has been seriously so fascinating, and I really appreciate you breaking it down because I'm really excited for what you're doing and the book that's coming out and how you're trying to productize what you're doing and how you've adapted over time. I think it's really fascinating. So, thank you so much for coming and for sharing
That.
about you. And you yourself are an interesting human, and so it's been a pleasure having you on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So, for people that want to get in touch with Semantic Arts or with Dave McComb, like how do people find you?
So let's start with the website is just semanticarts.com. It's pretty simple. There's tons of material out there. If you want to, dive in, it's pretty deep and rich. Yeah, I think that's probably let's just start there and you can find your way.
Okay, sounds good. Guys, well, I'm going to put that link directly in the episode notes so that you
Yeah,
can access that directly from Dave. And again, thank you so much for coming onto the show. And guys, thank you so much for listening. We know that your time is valuable. So for you to spend some moments with us means the absolute world. So again, thank you so much, Dave.
great. Thanks, Lisanne.
Thanks, everybody. Until next time on the Marketing Matrix.